Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars. He had seen many things in his 30 years as a soldier, but nothing like this. The message that came through the communication system 3 hours ago changed everything. His ship, the Liberty, was one of Earth's biggest warships. It carried 5,000 people and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. But compared to what was coming, it seemed like a toy. The door opened and Lisa Martinez walked in. She was his best officer and spoke 12 different alien languages. Her face was pale and her hands shook a little as she held the translation device. "Sir, I have finished working on the message," she said. "You need to hear this." Jake turned around. Behind him, the other officers on the bridge stopped their work to listen. They all knew this was important. "The message comes from the Galactic Council," Lisa continued. "They are asking for our help. The war with the Void Hunters is going very badly. They are losing." Alex Turner, the ship's tactical officer, made a sound of surprise. "The Galactic Council? The same people who told us we were too primitive to join them 5 years ago?" "Yes," Lisa nodded. "The same ones who said our weapons were too simple and our military was too violent for civilized space." Jake had remembered that meeting well. The alien ambassadors had visited Earth and looked at human military forces. They had laughed at the tanks, the guns, and the nuclear weapons. They said energy weapons and quantum technology were much better. They said humans fought like wild animals instead of civilized beings. "What exactly are they asking for?" Jake asked. Lisa looked at her notes. "They want our military to help them fight the Void Hunters. They are offering full membership in the Galactic Council and access to all their technology if we help them." When this war, the bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew about the Void Hunters. They were a race of creatures that looked like machines but were actually alive. They moved from star system to star system, eating everything they found. Planets, ships, entire civilizations, nothing could stop them. "How bad is it?" Jake asked. Alex pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. Red dots showed where the Void Hunters had attacked. There were hundreds of them, and they were spreading fast toward the center of the galaxy where most civilizations lived. According to their data, the Void Hunters have destroyed over 200 star systems in the last 3 years, Alex said. The Altarians have lost half their fleet. The Corvan warrior clans are retreating on all fronts. Even the Nexari, who everyone says are the smartest species in the galaxy, cannot figure out how to stop them. Jake studied the map. Each red dot represented billions of dead people. The Void Hunters were not just winning, they were destroying everything. "What makes these Void Hunters so dangerous?" he asked Lisa Reed from her translation. "They adapt to any weapon used against them. When the aliens shoot them with energy weapons, they learn to absorb the energy and use it to make themselves stronger. When they use quantum weapons, the Void Hunters figure out how to bend space and time to protect themselves. Every time someone tries a new weapon, the Void Hunters learn from it and become immune." "So they are like a virus," said Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's science officer. "They get stronger every time someone attacks them." "Exactly," Lisa said. "The Galactic Council has tried everything. Plasma cannons, gravity weapons, weapons that attack through other dimensions, even weapons that can destroy matter itself. Nothing works for more than a few battles. The Void Hunters always adapt." Jake walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars. He thought about Earth's military. They used bullets, bombs, and missiles. Chemical explosives that created fire and shockwaves. Nuclear weapons that turned matter into energy. Biological weapons that attacked living tissue. Cyber attacks that confused electronic systems. All of it was considered primitive by galactic standards. "Have the Void Hunters ever fought against kinetic weapons?" he asked. Alex checked the data. "According to this, no. The galactic civilizations stopped using physical projectiles thousands of years ago. They think shooting solid objects at enemies is too simple." "What about chemical explosives?" "No record of that either. They use pure energy for everything." Jake smiled for the first time since receiving the message. "So they have never seen a bullet or a bomb." "Sir, you're not thinking what I think you're Thinking, Lisa said with worry in her voice. I'm thinking exactly what you think I'm thinking, Jake replied. The Void Hunters adapt to weapons they understand, but they can't adapt to weapons they have never seen before. Sarah Kim looked uncertain. But sir, our weapons are so much less powerful than theirs. A bullet can't compete with a plasma cannon. Power isn't everything, Jake said. Sometimes the simple solution is the best one. He turned to face his officers. Think about it. For thousands of years, galactic civilizations have been fighting clean, civilized wars. They use energy weapons that don't make noise or smoke. They fight in organized formations with predictable tactics. They try to minimize damage to surrounding areas. And we don't, Alex said, beginning to understand. We don't, Jake agreed. We fight dirty. We use weapons that explode and create chaos. We attack from unexpected directions. We're willing to sacrifice our own ships to destroy the enemy. We fight like our lives depend on it because they do. The bridge officers looked at each other. They had all heard the stories about human military history. The desperate battles, the last stands, the willingness to do anything to protect their homes and families. The message says they want an answer within 24 hours, Lisa said. What should I tell them? Jake thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea that monsters from space were coming to eat them. He thought about his daughter, who was starting school next month. He thought about his wife, who worked in a hospital helping. Sick people, tell them yes, he said. Tell them humanity accepts their offer. Sir, we should probably check with Earth Command first, Alex suggested. No time, Jake said. The Void Hunters are moving too fast. Every day we wait, more people die. Besides, I know what Earth Command will say. What will they say? Sarah asked. They'll say the same thing every human military leader has said when faced with an impossible enemy. We'll find a way to win. Lisa began typing the response message. As she worked, Jake looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, an enemy that had never been defeated was coming. An enemy that adapted to every weapon, learned from every attack, and grew stronger. With each victory, but they had never fought humans before. Message sent, Lisa announced. Good, Jake said. Now contact Earth Command and tell them to prepare the fleet. We're going to war. What kind of war? Alex asked. Jake smiled grimly. The kind of war we're good at. The kind that scares civilized people. The kind that wins. As the Liberty turned toward Earth to gather the human fleet, Jake Morrison knew that everything was about to change. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humans decided to fight for survival. The aliens wanted help from Earth's primitive military. They were about to get more than they bargained for. The war was about to become very interesting. 3 weeks after the message from the Galactic Council, the human fleet arrived at Vega Prime. The alien stronghold was the last major military base before the Void Hunters reached the heart of galactic civilization. Patricia Blake stood on the bridge of her command ship and watched the alien vessels surrounding the space station. The alien ships were beautiful. They curved like flowing water and glowed with soft light. Their hulls were made of materials that seemed to shift colors in the starlight. They looked like art pieces floating in space. The human ships looked like weapons. Patricia's ship, the Thunderstorm, was all sharp angles and dark metal. Gun turrets stuck out from every surface. Missile tubes lined the sides like rows of teeth. Where the alien ships whispered through space, the human ships roared. General Blake, we are receiving a communication from the station, reported Captain Ryan Phillips, her second in command. The alien commanders want to meet with us. Good, Patricia said. Let's go show them what Earth has to offer. 2 hours later, Patricia sat in the alien war room surrounded by creatures from across the galaxy. The Corvan High Commander had 4 arms and skin like red leather. The Altarian representative glowed with soft blue light and spoke in musical tones. The Nexari delegate looked like a tall gray stick with too many eyes. All of them were staring at the metal briefcase Patricia had placed on the table. Your ships are very practical, said High Commander Zethkar, the Corvan leader. His 4 arms moved as he spoke, a sign of nervousness in his species. but I do not understand how they can succeed where our advanced technology has failed. Patricia smiled. That's because you've been fighting a civilized war. We're about to make it uncivilized. She opened the briefcase. Inside were samples of human weapons. Bullets, grenades, small explosive devices, and chemical compounds. They looked crude compared to the elegant alien technology filling the room. These are projectiles, Patricia said, picking up a bullet. We fire them from tubes using chemical explosives. They travel at high speed and punch holes in things. The Altarian representative, who called herself Luminara, made a sound of confusion. But this is so primitive. Our energy weapons can vaporize entire ships. Can they vaporize something that's already past their defenses? Ask Colonel Maya Rodriguez, Patricia's weapons expert. This bullet doesn't need to charge up. It doesn't need to calculate trajectory. It just goes straight and fast and breaks whatever it hits. Maya picked up a grenade. This is a hand grenade. It explodes using chemical reactions and sends metal fragments in all directions. The explosion creates pressure waves that damage internal organs. The Nexari delegate, called Mindweaver, tilted his head. But the Void Hunters adapt to all weapons. They will learn to defend against these primitive devices. Will they? Patricia asked. Ryan, show them the test footage. Ryan activated a holographic display. It showed a captured Void Hunter creature in a testing chamber. The creature was about the size of a human but covered in black metal that shifted and moved like living tissue. Its red eyes glowed as it analyzed its surroundings. This Void Hunter sample was taken from a battlefield 3 months ago, Ryan explained. We've been studying it. Watch what happens when we attack it with an energy weapon. In the hologram, a beam of bright energy hit the creature. Immediately, the metal skin began to change. It became reflective, then absorptive. Within seconds, the creature was completely immune to the energy weapon. Now watch what happens with a human weapon. Ryan said. A simple explosive device rolled into the chamber. The Void Hunter looked at it, trying to analyze the threat. Its metal skin began to shift, preparing to adapt. The grenade exploded. The chemical explosion tore through the creature's defenses before it could adapt. The shockwave damaged its internal systems. The metal fragments cut through its adaptive armor. The Void Hunter died. The alien commander sat in silence, staring at the hologram. How is this possible? Zethkar asked. Because adaptation takes time, Patricia explained. The Void Hunters need to analyze a weapon to understand it. Energy weapons are predictable. They have patterns, frequencies, power levels. The Void Hunters can study these things and adapt. She held up another grenade, but this is just chemicals and metal. There's nothing to analyze until it explodes, and by then, it's too late. Commander Steve Carter, who led the human destroyer fleet, leaned forward. We've studied your battle records. The Void Hunters always take the same approach. They analyze the enemy weapons, adapt their defenses, then counterattack with superior force. It's very logical. So what do you do differently? Asked Luminara. We don't give them time to be logical, Steve said. We hit them with everything at once. Bullets, bombs, missiles, chemical weapons, biological agents, cyber attacks, nuclear weapons. Different types of attacks coming from different directions at different times. Patricia nodded. The Void Hunters are like a computer trying to solve a puzzle. But what happens when you give a computer 1,000 different puzzles all at the same time? It overloads, Mindweaver said, his many eyes blinking rapidly. The processing power becomes divided. Exactly, Patricia said. And while they're trying to figure out how to stop bullets, we hit them with bombs. While they're adapting to bombs, we attack with biological weapons. While they're dealing with that, we ram our ships into theirs. The alien commanders looked uncomfortable. Ramming ships into enemies was considered barbaric by galactic standards. This approach seems very chaotic, Luminara said. How do you coordinate such random attacks? We don't, Ryan said. That's the point. Each human commander makes their own decisions based on what they see. We don't follow a plan because plans can be predicted. We improvise. Patricia stood up and walked to the window overlooking the space station's docking bay. Human and alien ships were working together to load supplies and weapons. But the differences were obvious. The alien crews moved in organized patterns, following precise procedures. The human crews looked like they were barely controlled chaos. "Your people have been fighting this war for 3 years," Patricia said. "You've lost hundreds of ships and millions of people. You've tried every advanced weapon in your arsenal. Nothing has worked." She turned back to face the alien commanders. "Do you know why nothing has worked?" "Because the Void Hunters adapt to everything," Zethkar said. "No," Patricia said. "Because you've been fighting the war they want you to fight. You've been playing by their rules. Energy weapons, organized tactics, predictable strategies. You've been civilized." Maya picked up a flamethrower from the briefcase. This weapon creates fire using liquid fuel. It burns at temperatures that melt metal. It's messy, dangerous, and completely unpredictable. It's also completely outside the Void Hunter's experience. "We're not going to fight a civilized war," Patricia continued. "We're going to fight a human war. We're going to be dirty, brutal, and completely unpredictable. We're going to make the Void Hunters afraid." "Fear is not logical," Mindweaver said. "How can you make a logical enemy afraid?" "By showing them something they can't understand," Patricia said. "By proving that sometimes the primitive way is the right way?" Steve activated another holographic display. This one showed the human battle plan for the next engagement. It looked like complete chaos. Ships attacking from random directions, different weapons being used simultaneously, tactics that changed every few minutes. "This is madness," Luminara said. "Yes," Patricia agreed. "But it's our kind of madness. And the Void Hunters have never seen anything like it." The meeting continued for several more hours. The alien commanders asked questions about human tactics, weapons, and strategies. With each answer, they looked more worried and more hopeful at the same time. Finally, Zethkar stood up. "Very well, General Blake, we will try your human approach. But I hope you understand what you are asking us to do." "What am I asking you to do?" Patricia said. "You are asking us to abandon everything we believe about civilized warfare. You are asking us to become like humans." Patricia smiled. "Yes, I am. Because right now, being human might be the only thing that saves the galaxy." As the alien commanders left the room, Patricia turned to her officers. "Well, that went better than expected. Do you think they'll actually fight like humans?" Ryan asked. "They'll learn to," Patricia said. "Because if they don't, they'll die like civilized beings." Outside the window, the mixed fleet was preparing for battle. Soon, the Void Hunters would discover that the galaxy had learned a new way to fight. They were about to learn what happened when humans taught others to be human. Danny Rodriguez sat in the pilot seat of his fighter ship and watched the Void Hunter fleet approaching Kepler Station. The enemy ships looked like giant black insects made of metal and machinery. Their hulls pulsed with red light as they moved through space, eating everything in their path. "This is it," Danny said into his radio. "Remember what General Blake taught us? Hit them fast, hit them hard, and don't give them time to think." His squadron was small compared to the Void Hunter fleet. 15 human fighters against 200 enemy ships. In a normal battle, they would be destroyed in minutes. But this was not going to be a normal battle. "Phoenix Leader, this is Kepler Station," came a voice through the radio. "We are detecting massive Void Hunter forces. They have us completely surrounded." Danny looked at his tactical display. The red dots representing enemy ships covered his screen. The Void Hunters were using their standard approach, overwhelming force applied in a predictable pattern. They would surround the target, analyze its defenses, then attack with superior numbers. "Station, this is Phoenix Leader," Danny replied. "Start the evacuation protocol. We're going to buy you some time." But Danny was not planning to fight a defensive battle. He was planning to do something the Void Hunters had never seen before. Sarah Kim flew the stealth ship Whisper about 50 kilometers behind the main group. Her ship was invisible to most sensors, carrying a cargo that would have shocked the alien commanders. Hidden in her cargo bay were 20 nuclear weapons, each one modified with human engineering to explode in different ways. "Sarah, are you in position?" Danny asked. "Ready when you are," Sarah replied. "The packages are armed and waiting." The Void Hunters moved closer to Kepler Station. Their ships began to analyze the station's defenses, looking for weaknesses. They detected the human energy shields, the plasma cannons, and the quantum weapons. Their black hulls began to shift and change. Adapting to counter these expected threats, they were not prepared for what happened next. "All units, execute Operation Chaos," Danny ordered. The human ships did not attack the Void Hunter fleet. Instead, they scattered in all directions, looking like they were running away in panic. The Void Hunters interpreted this as a retreat and moved forward to claim their prize. Inside Kepler Station, Sergeant Nicole Foster was leading a team of Marines through the lower levels. They were not evacuating, they were setting up surprises. "Place the charges here, here, and here," Nicole told her team, pointing to locations throughout the station's cargo bays. "Make sure they're hidden behind the supply containers." The charges were simple chemical explosives, the kind humans had been using for centuries, but they were connected to automated systems that the Void Hunters had never encountered before. 3D printers that could create new weapons in real time, chemical labs that could produce biological agents, computer systems that could launch cyber attacks. "Sergeant Foster, the enemy is boarding the station," reported Private Walsh from the security center. "They're coming through docking. Bay 7. "Good," Nicole said. "Let them come. We have a surprise waiting." The first group of Void Hunter warriors entered the station expecting to find the usual alien defenders. They were biomechanical creatures that looked like walking machines. Their bodies covered in adaptive armor that could change to counter any weapon. They walked into the main corridor and immediately began scanning for threats. Their sensors detected energy weapon signatures, plasma residue, and quantum field fluctuations. Their armor began to adapt to these expected attacks. Then Nicole and her team opened fire with shotguns. The Void Hunters had never encountered kinetic weapons before. The metal pellets tore through their adaptive armor before they could understand what was happening. The creatures tried to adapt, but there was nothing to adapt to except simple physics, metal moving very fast. "Contact!" Nicole shouted into her radio. "They're going down, but more are coming." In space, the real battle was beginning. Commander Bruce Lee led a squadron of human fighters that were not following any known tactical doctrine. Instead of engaging in organized dogfights, they were using kamikaze attacks. "Remember," Bruce told his pilots, "our ships are cheaper than theirs. We can afford to lose them. They can't." The first human fighter, piloted by Lieutenant Mark Johnson, flew straight at a Void Hunter cruiser. The enemy ship's weapons locked onto the small fighter. But instead of trying to destroy it, the Void Hunter ship tried to capture it for analysis. Mark's fighter exploded in a nuclear blast that took out 3 enemy ships. The Void Hunters were confused. Why would the humans destroy their own ships? It made no tactical sense. They tried to analyze the strategy, but there was no strategy to analyze. It was pure human desperation turned into a weapon. "Sarah, now?" Danny ordered. Sarah Kim's stealth ship appeared in the middle of the Void Hunter fleet and began releasing her nuclear weapons, but these were not normal nuclear bombs. Human engineers had modified them to explode in sequence, creating a chain reaction that the Void Hunters could not predict or counter. The first explosion was a standard nuclear blast. The Void Hunters began to adapt their shields to absorb nuclear energy. Then the second bomb exploded, but this one was designed to create an electromagnetic pulse that disabled their adaptive systems. While they were blind, the third bomb exploded, with chemical agents that ate through their hull materials. "What is happening?" came a transmission from the Void Hunter command ship. It was the first time anyone had ever heard them speak in confusion instead of cold logic. "Or happening," Danny replied. Even though he knew they could not understand his language, the space battle became complete chaos. Human fighters were ramming enemy ships, exploding in nuclear blasts, and using weapons that the Void Hunters had never seen before. Flamethrowers that worked in space by carrying their own oxygen? Acid bombs that ate through armor? Biological weapons that attacked the living parts of the biomechanical creatures, but the most devastating weapon was the psychological impact. The Void Hunters had always fought logical, predictable enemies. They had never faced an enemy that seemed to enjoy destroying itself as much as it enjoyed destroying them. On the station, Nicole's team was fighting room by room against the Void Hunter boarding parties. They were using every dirty trick humans had ever invented. Booby traps, made from household chemicals, improvised explosive devices built from mining equipment, psychological warfare that included playing loud music to confuse the enemy's communication systems. "They're adapting to our weapons," reported Private Walsh. "Their armor is getting thicker." "Then we switch weapons," Nicole said. She dropped her shotgun and picked up a flamethrower. "Let's see them adapt to fire." The Void Hunters tried to adapt to the flames, but fire was not a weapon they could easily counter. It was a chemical reaction that consumed oxygen and produced heat. Their armor could become heat-resistant, but then it became vulnerable to the kinetic weapons. When they adapted to both, the humans switched to biological weapons. "This is insane," one of the Void Hunters transmitted to their command ship. "They keep changing tactics." "There's no pattern to analyze." "Find the pattern," the command ship replied. "Everything has a pattern." But there was no pattern because the humans were making it up as they went along. Every time the Void Hunters adapted to one attack, the humans tried something completely different. In space, the Void Hunter fleet was beginning to retreat. They had lost over 50 ships to an enemy force that should have been destroyed in minutes. Their adaptive systems were overloaded trying to counter weapons they had never seen before. "This is impossible," the Void Hunter commander transmitted. "These creatures fight without logic. They sacrifice themselves for no tactical advantage. They use weapons that harm themselves as much as they harm us." Danny heard the transmission through the station's communication system. He smiled. "That's right," he said. "We're completely crazy. And that's why we're winning." The Void Hunter fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving the system. It was the first time in the war that they had retreated from a battle. As the human ships regrouped around Kepler Station, Danny looked at his tactical display. They had lost 8 fighters and taken heavy damage to the station, but they had won. "All units, this is Phoenix Leader," Danny said. "Mission accomplished. The Void Hunters are running." "Phoenix Leader, this is Kepler Station," came the reply. "Thank you. We thought we were all going to die." "Not today," Danny said. "Today we taught the galaxy something new." "What did we teach them?" Sarah asked. "That sometimes the best way to win is to fight like you're already dead," Danny replied. The Void Hunters couldn't understand that. And that's why they lost. The news of the human victory spread through the galaxy faster than light. For the first time in 3 years, the Void Hunters had been defeated. The impossible had happened, and it was just the beginning. The news of the human victory at Kepler Station spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Jake Morrison stood in the command center on New Harmony, watching representatives from dozens of alien species arrive to learn about human military tactics. The planet had been liberated from the Void Hunters just 2 weeks ago, and now it served as the headquarters for the new Joint Military Command. "Admiral Morrison, the Nexari delegation is here," announced Captain Kelly Wright, his new intelligence officer. "They want to observe our training methods." Jake nodded and walked to the observation deck. Below him, human instructors were teaching alien soldiers how to fight like humans. The sight was both impressive and disturbing. A group of elegant Altarians, who normally moved like dancers, were learning to crawl through mud while carrying heavy weapons. Their beautiful, crystal-like skin was covered in dirt, and their musical voices had become harsh shouts of military commands. Nearby, proud Corvan warriors were practicing ambush tactics. Instead of their traditional honorable combat, they were learning to hide behind rocks and attack enemies from behind. Their forearms made them excellent at handling multiple weapons at once, but the shame in their eyes was obvious. "This is not right," said Wistel, the Nixari philosopher who had been watching the training. We are teaching them to abandon their nature, their culture, their very souls. Kelly Wright looked up from her tactical display. We're teaching them to survive, she said simply. Your civilized approach was getting everyone killed. Jake had heard this argument many times over the past month. The alien leaders understood that human tactics worked, but they struggled with the moral cost. Fighting like humans meant giving up everything they believed about honor, dignity, and civilized warfare. The results speak for themselves, Jake said, pointing to the tactical map on the wall. Since we started training mixed units, we've won 12 major battles. The Void Hunters are retreating on all fronts. The map showed the war's progress. Red areas where the Void Hunters still controlled territory were shrinking. Blue areas where the Allied forces had retaken systems were growing. For the first time in 3 years, the galaxy was pushing back. But at what cost? Wistel asked. Look at what we have become. Jake looked down at the training ground again. A group of young Altarians was learning to use flamethrowers. Their instructor, Sergeant Mike Thompson, was teaching them the most effective ways to cause maximum damage to enemy forces. This weapon creates fire that burns at 3,000 degrees, Mike explained to his alien students. It's not just about killing the enemy, it's about making them afraid. Fear is a weapon too, one of the Altarians raised a glowing hand. Sergeant Thompson, this seems unnecessarily cruel. Why not use clean energy weapons that kill instantly? Mike shook his head. Because clean deaths don't scare the enemy. The Void Hunters need to know that fighting us will be painful, messy, and horrible. They need to be afraid of what we'll do to them. Jake watched the young Altarian's face change as he understood. The innocence left his eyes, replaced by something harder and more practical. It was the same change Jake had seen in hundreds of alien soldiers over the past weeks. Admiral Morrison, came a voice from the communication system. We have a priority. Message from Captain Tony Martinez. He's leading the assault on Rigel 7. Jake walked to the communication station. The message was coming from the middle of a battle, and he could hear explosions in the background. This is Martinez, the voice crackled through the speakers. The joint human-alien assault is working perfectly. The Void Hunters don't know how to respond to our mixed tactics. Give me details, Jake said. We're hitting them with everything. At once, Martinez replied. The Corvin warriors are using their traditional weapons alongside human explosives. The Altarians are combining their energy shields with our kinetic weapons. The Nexari are running cyber attacks while we hit them with nuclear weapons, Jake smiled. This was exactly what he had hoped would happen. The different species were learning to combine their strengths with human tactics, creating something more powerful than either could achieve alone. The best part, Martinez continued, is that we're broadcasting human music during the attack. Heavy metal, death metal, all the loudest and most violent sounds we could find. It's driving the Void Hunters crazy, Jake laughed. The idea of using music as a weapon was completely absurd, but if it worked, it worked. Sir, we're also using something new, Martinez added. Dr. Rachel Green's research team discovered something important about the Void Hunter psychology. Jake's expression became serious. What did they find? The Void Hunters share a collective consciousness, Martinez explained. They're all connected mentally. When one of them experiences something, they all experience it. Dr. Green figured out how to use this against them. How? We're not just fighting to kill them, we're fighting to traumatize them. Every time we use a weapon they don't understand, it creates confusion in their shared mind. Every time we do something that seems illogical, it causes mental stress throughout their entire species. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. We're not just winning battles. We're driving them insane. Exactly, Martinez said. And it's working. The Void Hunters are making mistakes they never made before. They're acting out of fear instead of logic. The communication ended, leaving Jake alone with his thoughts. He walked to the window and looked out at the alien city below. The buildings were beautiful, with flowing architecture that seemed to grow naturally from the ground. But now they were filled with weapons factories, military training centers, and hospitals for wounded soldiers. Admiral Morrison, Kelly Wright said, joining him at the window. The casualty reports from the last battle are in. We lost fewer people than expected, but the psychological impact on our alien allies is severe. What do you mean? Many of them are requesting transfers away from human-led units. They say fighting like humans is changing them in ways they don't like. Jake nodded. He had expected this. What are they saying exactly? Kelly read from her report. One Altarian officer said that after using a flamethrower in combat, he no longer found beauty in fire. A Corvan warrior said that ambush tactics were making him suspicious of his own friends. A Nexari strategist said that thinking like humans was making him question everything he believed about logic and reason. And yet they keep volunteering for combat duty, Jake observed. Yes, sir, they hate what fighting like humans is doing to them, but they can't argue with the results. Jake thought about his own species. Humans had been fighting brutal wars for thousands of years. They had learned to live with the psychological cost because the alternative was extinction. Now they were teaching other species the same harsh lessons. Sir, there's something else, Kelly said. We've intercepted Void Hunter communications. They're talking about us. What are they saying? Kelly activated a holographic display showing the translated text. They're calling us the Chaos Bringers. And the Logic Destroyers, they say we fight like we're already dead, so we have nothing to lose. Jake read the translation carefully. The Void Hunters were describing human tactics in terms that showed genuine fear. They talked about weapons. That made no sense. Attacks that served no logical purpose, and soldiers who seemed to enjoy their own destruction. They're afraid of us, Jake said with surprise. Yes, sir. For the first time in their existence, the Void Hunters are experiencing fear, and they don't know how to handle it. Jake looked at the tactical map again. The war was turning in their favor, but the cost was becoming clear. The galaxy was learning to fight like humans, but in doing so, they were becoming more like humans, violent, unpredictable, and dangerous. Kelly, send a message to all unit commanders, Jake said. Tell them the next phase of the war is about to begin. We're going to take the fight to the Void Hunter home system. Sir, are you sure we're ready for that? Jake looked out at the alien city again. Children of a dozen different species were playing in the streets, but their games had changed. Instead of peaceful activities, they were playing war games, pretending to be soldiers, mimicking the violence they saw around them. We're as ready as we'll ever be, Jake said. The galaxy has learned to fight like humans. Now it's time to find out if that's enough to win this war. As the sun set over New Harmony, Jake Morrison wondered if saving the galaxy was worth the price they were paying. They were winning battles, but they were losing something else, the innocence and civilization that had made the galaxy worth saving in the first place. The war was changing everyone, and there was no going back. The final battle began in the dark space where the Void Hunters had built their home. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defiance, and watched the largest military fleet in galactic history prepare for war. Ships from every species in the galaxy floated in formation, but they no longer looked like the elegant vessels that had started this war. The alien ships had been modified with human weapons. Missile pods stuck out from their smooth hulls like metal thorns. Chemical weapon dispensers had been welded to their energy weapon ports. Nuclear warheads were strapped to their sides like deadly ornaments. Admiral Morrison, all fleets report. Ready? Announced Commander Lisa Wong, his tactical officer. We have 15,000 ships from 47 different species. Jake nodded and looked at the tactical display. The Void Hunter home system was ahead of them, hidden in a nebula that blocked most sensors. Intelligence reports said the enemy mothership was the size of a small moon, surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels. This is it, Jake said into the communication system. This is what we've been training for. Today we end this war. The fleet began to move forward into the nebula. Jake could see the changes in his alien allies through the video links. The Altarians no longer glowed with peaceful light. Their crystals had turned dark and sharp, reflecting the violence they had learned. The Kovan warriors had painted their faces with war paint, copying human military traditions. The Nexari had stopped their philosophical discussions and spoke only in tactical terms. "Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures ahead," reported Lieutenant Commander David Shaw. "From the sensor station, and the mothership is bigger than our estimates. It's not just a ship, it's a mobile factory that's been building new Void Hunters for centuries." Jake studied the readings. The enemy vessel was enormous, stretching across space like a metal mountain. Smaller ships swarmed around it like insects, but even the small ships were larger than human battleships. "All units, this is Admiral Morrison," Jake broadcast to the entire fleet. "Remember what we taught you. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and don't give them time to adapt. This is our last chance to save the galaxy." The battle began with chaos, exactly as the humans had planned. Instead of the organized formations that aliens traditionally used, the mixed fleet attacked from every direction at once. Human ships, loaded with nuclear weapons, made kamikaze runs at the enemy's main defenses. Alien vessels fired chemical weapons that created toxic clouds in space. Fighter squadrons used flamethrowers, acid bombs, and kinetic weapons that the Void Hunters had never encountered before. The Void Hunters tried to adapt, but there were too many different attacks happening at the same time. Their collective consciousness, which had been their greatest strength, became their weakness. Every new weapon created confusion throughout their entire species. Every unexpected tactic caused mental stress in their shared mind. "They're breaking formation," Lisa Wong reported. "The Void Hunter fleet is scattering." Jake watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The enemy ships were no longer moving in their usual precise patterns. Instead, they were flying erratically, like animals in panic. "Phase 2, Jake ordered. "All boarding parties, begin assault on the mothership." Lisa Wong led the first boarding party into the heart of the enemy vessel. She and her team of human, Marines, and alien soldiers moved through corridors that pulsed with organic machinery. The walls were alive, covered in biomechanical systems that tried to adapt to their presence. "Contact!" shouted Sergeant Carl Miller as the first Void Hunter defenders appeared. The creatures were different from the ones they had fought before. These were larger, more heavily armored, and seemed to be in constant communication with the mothership's central brain, but the human tactics still worked. Lisa's team used flamethrowers to burn through the living walls. They threw grenades that exploded with chemical agents designed to poison organic systems. They fired bullets that were coated with biological weapons that attacked the creatures' adaptive abilities. "Keep moving," Lisa ordered as her team fought deeper into the ship. "We need to reach the central command center." Behind them, more boarding parties were attacking other parts of the mothership. The Void Hunters tried to coordinate their defense, but the human-trained aliens were using tactics that made no sense to their logical minds. A group of Altarians used their energy shields to protect human soldiers who were carrying nuclear weapons by hand. Korvan warriors fought with 4 different types of weapons simultaneously, switching between chemical, biological, kinetic, and energy attacks so fast that the Void Hunters couldn't adapt to any of them. In space, the battle was becoming a slaughter. The Void Hunter fleet, which had seemed invincible for 3 years, was being destroyed by weapons and tactics they couldn't understand. "Captain." Then Rogers piloted his fighter directly into the engine section of an enemy cruiser. His ship exploded in a nuclear blast that took out the entire vessel. Similar sacrifices were happening throughout the battle, as humans and aliens who had learned to fight like humans threw away their lives to destroy the enemy. "This is madness," transmitted a Void Hunter commander. "They are destroying themselves to hurt us. There is no logic in this." "That's the point," Jake replied, knowing they could hear him. "We don't fight with logic, we fight with desperation. And desperate people do impossible things." The breakthrough came when Lisa Wong's team reached the central command center of the mothership. The chamber was enormous, filled with biomechanical systems that pulsed with the collective consciousness of the entire Void Hunter species. There, Lisa pointed to a massive organic computer at the center of the room. That's their central brain. If we can destroy it, we can cut off their ability to adapt. The final defenders were the most dangerous void hunters they had ever faced. These creatures were connected directly to the mothership systems, making them incredibly powerful. But they were also vulnerable to the psychological warfare that humans had perfected. Listen to this, Lisa said, activating a portable speaker that began playing human music at maximum volume. The sound was a mix of heavy metal, death metal, and war songs that humans had used to inspire courage in battle for centuries. The void hunters recoiled from the sound. Their collective consciousness, which was designed to process logical information, couldn't handle the chaotic emotional content of human music. The noise created mental static in their shared mind, making it impossible for them to coordinate their defenses. Lisa's team attacked with everything they had. Chemical weapons that burned through the organic systems, biological agents that turned the creatures' adaptive abilities against them, kinetic weapons that simply punched holes in things too fast for adaptation to occur. The central brain is damaged, reported Corporal Jenny Lee. Their collective consciousness is breaking down. Through the communication system, they could hear the void hunters throughout the galaxy crying out in confusion and pain. The shared mind that had made them so powerful was collapsing under the weight of human chaos. All units, this is Admiral Morrison, Jake broadcast. The enemy's central command is failing. Press the attack. End this war. The final assault lasted only minutes. Without their collective consciousness to guide them, the void hunters became just individual creatures fighting for survival. The adaptation that had made them invincible required coordination and shared knowledge. When that was gone, they were just animals. The mothership exploded in a burst of light that could be seen across the galaxy. The void hunter fleet suddenly, cut off from their guiding intelligence, stopped fighting and began to drift aimlessly through space. All enemy forces have ceased combat operations, Lisa Wong reported from the ruins of the command center. Sir, I think we've won. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiance and looked out at the aftermath of the battle. The space around them was filled with the wreckage of thousands of ships, both enemy and allied. The cost had been enormous, but the galaxy was free. Admiral Morrison, came a transmission from the Galactic Council. We want to thank you for what humanity has done. The galaxy owes you a debt that can never be repaid. Jake nodded, but he felt no joy in the victory. Around him, his officers were celebrating, but he could see the changes in them. They had become harder, more violent, more willing to sacrifice anything for victory. Sir, Lisa Wong said, joining him at the observation window. The Council is offering Earth full membership and access to all galactic technology. They want to make humanity the leaders of the new galactic military. Jake thought about that offer. Humanity had saved the galaxy by teaching it to fight like humans. But in doing so, they had changed the very nature of galactic civilization. The elegant, peaceful species that had asked for help no longer existed. They had been replaced by warriors who understood that sometimes violence was the only answer. What should I tell them? Lisa asked. Jake looked out at the mixed fleet, where human and alien ships were working together to search for survivors. The crews moved with the efficient brutality that had won the war. They had learned to fight like humans, but they had also learned to think like humans. Tell them we accept, Jake said. But remind them that they asked for our help.